Hello.
So there is a muscle, like many spiritual muscles in a person's being, that can always be exercised more. It's a little bit of an analogy to bodybuilding. If they keep on setting records for how much a person can lift, then you understand that the body is really capable of doing more and more. Just a question of exercising the muscle. So that is very much the case. I don't know if there's some absolute limit in physical being, but in spiritual being, there it's endless. And one of the muscles that you can always flex and exercise more is the muscle called hakaras hatov. It's gratitude. And there is a wired in, there's a built in, just like laziness is built into a person. So uh, being an ingrate is built into a person as well. We are referred to as kfuye tova, b'nei kfuye tova. We are ingrates, the great great grandchildren of the original ingrate, Adam Harishon, who wasn't sufficiently grateful in his uh, in his relationship with Hashem. So there's always more to do. So when we talk about gratitude, we talk about something that another thought, another insight, another awareness. We don't mean that this is where you have to get to for gratitude. It means that every thought about gratitude can help move us forward in the direction towards in flexing that muscle and strengthening that muscle. And how do you know if the muscle is being strengthened? You get all these lovely thoughts about gratitude and maybe hear a chazal, but how do you know if you're actually making movement, making progress? And the answer is that when you're making progress, certain things become easier for you. So gratitude provides a motivation, and it makes something that was previously difficult, it makes it easy. So, for example, it might be difficult to go out of your way and do a favor that puts you out, that is hard to do. But if you're doing it for somebody who saved your life, then it becomes easier. Because when you focus on, or even allow yourself to consider how indebted you are to the person, then it becomes easier. So, in general, when we're looking at gratitude and we want to know if we're making spiritual progress in exercising and flexing the muscle of gratitude, the the measure or the test of that is that some things are becoming easier. So what we're looking to try to do is to get our nose above the water line so that we're a little bit less of an ingrate, so that we can actually accomplish something with our gratitude. Because the standard gratitude that most people experience is zeroed out with a yeah, but, and that's not going to get you very far. Or I already repaid that favor, and that's certainly not going to get you very far. Or any of the ways that we somehow touch metal so that we get rid of the electric charge, it doesn't move us anymore. So Chazal tell us that there was a reaction to the miracle that happened at Purim that to some degree was even greater than the reaction to the miracle that happened at the Yam, at the splitting of the sea. The splitting of the sea, there was a sense of gratitude that allowed them to have Kabbalah Satorah. Meaning, because they were so grateful and they were so celebratory of the miracle that was done for them, they were able to say Na'aseh v'nishma. However, say Chazal, there was an element of force, of kfiyah. It was imposed on them. The expression that Chazal used is kaf aleim har kegigis, as if the mountain was over their heads, that they didn't have an option. However, because of their great love for the miracle that saved them at Purim, hadar kibluha, they accepted on themselves. The gratitude made it easier for them to do something that they couldn't have done before. The gratitude allowed them to willingly and lovingly accept all of the vast body of Torah that we know of as Torah Shebaal Peh. So that's the measure of gratitude, is that you have this huge, call it a burden, we have this huge body of Torah that somebody would say, I don't even know, how can I accept a thing like that? It seems like such a huge burden. But when they are confronted with this amazing miracle, so Rashi's language is from the love of the miracle, they loved it so much that they were able to accept it, and that was the real Kabbalah Satorah. So actually, there are 2 days of Kabbalah Satorah. There's what we know of as the Kabbalah Satorah at Har Sinai, which we mark on Shavuos, and there's the Kabbalah Satorah of Purim. The Kabbalah Satorah of Sinai was on the backs of their gratitude for the Yetzias Mitzrayim, but it had its limitations because it was only as good as they were willing to put their nose above the water and not be Tfuye Tova. But Chazal tell us that they still wanted to feel as though they had their own, they were in charge. They didn't quite want to subserviate themselves fully to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Gemara in Avodah Zarah, talk about it another time. But when it came to Purim, they were all in, and their willingness to accept the Malchus Shemayim as it appears, as it expresses itself in Torah Shebaal Peh, that they were willing to do. So whenever we're talking about a thought, we're in gratitude, we're looking to see if we can use it to make it easier for us to fall in love, so to speak, with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and to then accept and receive his Torah. And just to give you an idea, a thought to use with regard to Hakaras Hatov, Chazal tell us they instituted a bracha of Asher Heini. Asher Heini is recited in all Tzibur. It's recited at the nighttime reading of the Megillah, and it is questionable, and there's disputes about reading it in the morning. But there's a fascinating indictment of Haman. Chazal instituted an indictment of Haman. What was the indictment? That he didn't remember the kindness that Shaul had done by saving his Eltezeder. His Eltezeder, Agag, was meant to have been killed by Shaul, and he did not kill him. He let him live another day, and that gave an opening for there to be progeny, for there to be subsequent generations of Amalek, and that's what allowed Haman to come into the world. So of all of the things that Haman did, the outrageous things that he did, setting in motion what would later be the Holocaust. I mean, he set in motion every possible offense against the Jewish people. The Chazal said, you know what the story is with this guy? He didn't remember a kindness. That's the issue. He didn't remember a kindness. It, to some degree, we'd be shocked. That's what you have the charge sheet against Haman is that he didn't remember, he didn't have a Hatov. And the answer is that's what Hakaras Hatov can do. If you shut yourself off from Hakaras Hatov, then it's always going to get shut off, and you'll always find an excuse to be able to pursue your agenda without gratitude. And if you open up the spigot of Hakaras Hatov, you'll discover, well, my Elta Zayde was a beneficiary of this person's Elta Zayde, so I would never do anything negative towards him. That's what Hakaras Hatov can do when you open the spigot. And apparently, even a non-Jew is expected to open up that spigot to the point where you can indict Haman for not remembering that Shaul saved Agag. We find a similar thing with regard to Paro. Everybody thinks of Paro as just a lowlife who Asher lo yodas Yosef. Either he made himself as though he doesn't know Yosef, or he actually was a new king and didn't know Yosef. Any way you look at it, there's a Chazal that says that he actually protested. He said it's not right, it's unethical for us to do anything to the offspring of Yaakov and Yosef who saved Mitzrayim. And it's unethical for us to do anything that would oppress them. And his staff insisted, and he forfeited his throne. Don't remember in the language of Chazal for what period of time he stepped down from his throne in protest. He said, I absolutely will not allow us to do anything that would harm the interests of the descendants of Yaakov and Yosef, for all we owe to them. But at a certain point, remaining away from the palace was too much for him, and he gave in, and he went along with them, and he became part of the instigator of the program against the Jews. Giving up a person's throne, people don't give up power so easily, and they certainly didn't give up power of the most powerful nation in the world. But that's what he did, because it was in ingratitude. And Chazal say that Pasuk is nailing him. Asher lo yodas Yosef, calling him a common ingrate, because he didn't go the distance. He didn't go the full distance that he could have gone, and stayed away and protested and never allowed this to happen. He gave in at a certain point. It's human. But when it comes to gratitude allows you to do things that a human being can't do. Gratitude allows you to step beyond your boundaries and your limitations. And that's what gratitude really is. It's what a measure of gratitude is, does it help me do something that I otherwise would find very difficult, if not impossible to do. But when it comes to helping someone who has been my benefactor, then it starts getting easy. And so when we're thinking about Purim, and we're thinking about the Kabbalas HaTorah of Purim, what we're really thinking about is, how can I flex the muscle of gratitude? First, I have to make sure that I'm not an overtly just to know I don't owe anybody anything, I'm not indebted to anyone. Get your nose above the water of being a kafui tova. Get your nose above the water of our nature. And briefly, when you manage to get your nose above the water and you actually feel the indebtedness, stretch it, build on it, think about it, dwell on it, contemplate it, meditate on it, to the point where the things that you need to do start becoming easier. And that is the blessing of Purim, is that we can spend the day fully focused on becoming that grateful of a person. Have a Freilich in Purim.